Welcome to the free Spainguru webinar, Moving to Spain from Vision to Reality. This is Bruno Bianchi Sarcone, and I run Spainguru.es. What will you gain today from this webinar? Hopefully, a clear step-by-step roadmap to relocate to Spain, guidance on legal, financial, and lifestyle planning, insights to choose the best location for your needs. This is very important. Where in Spain? Spain is very varied. Where should you move to? Key preparation tips, maybe things that you haven't considered, practical tools and confidence to make your move a success. And it is always my style not to show you the beautiful, only the beautiful things about moving to Spain, but also, the not so beautiful, maybe slightly ugly, and preparing you for it. Yes. A little bit about Spainguru. Our objective is facilitating relocation process for English-speaking foreigners to Spain since 2014, so more than 10 years in the industry. As you can see there, we have some nice reviews. My name is Bruno. And about me, a little bit about me. I don't normally introduce myself, but I think it's important that you know who is talking to you and why I think I have some life experience and information to share about moving to Spain. I've been here for 21 years. I'm originally from Argentina, but I live in 7 countries. I speak 5 languages. I used to speak 6, including Greek, but I forgot it. And I hold 3 nationalities. One of them is Spanish. 20 years in business and project operations, managing more than 100 people. That was probably the top of my professional career, if not Spainguru. So I know a little bit about projects and about project management and project planning. And I'm a startup founder and entrepreneur. I started projects that raised money here and abroad. And I'm married to an American with 2 kids that happens to be one of the founders of Spainguru. Her name is Shaheen, and she's from Ohio. And my 2 kids, as you can see there, are a little Argentine, a little American, and a lot Spanish, as you can see. And about Spainguru, you can use Spainguru for different things. You can find services. I have personally vetted my partners, and most of them I recommended them for years. So they stood the test of time. You can find immigration experts. And I highly recommend consulting, at least consulting before moving to Spain, considering even moving to Spain, so that you understand the pathways to move to Spain and the strategy. If you pretend to stay here for long term, it's important to have a clear path set by experts and also tax advisors. It's very, very important to know the implications even before taking the decision to move to Spain. Now, if you plan to apply for visas that require health insurances, you can find compliant health insurance on Spainguru, medical certificates. You will need to do SORN translation, apostille services, which is legalization of documentation. And you will need many other auxiliary services like bank accounts, money transfer services, property rentals, mortgages, even if you plan to buy in Spain. All those you can find personally vetted partners on Spainguru. But you can also use it for free. Spainguru.es has a lot to give for free. Weekly newsletter I send every single Monday with the top discussions. YouTube channel with more than 850 videos. Blog, more than 1,600 articles. And of course, Facebook groups with a total aggregated community of 140,000 members in different groups. Spanish immigration, dedicated groups to the different types of visa like non-lucrative visa, digital nomad visa, etc., etc. Now, let's go to the project of moving to Spain, because it can really be treated as such, as a project, right? And like every project, you have different stages, okay, that can be set up in a chronological way. Sometimes you have, you have the different stages that can be overlapping, but it is easier for the human being, for the human mind, to set it as a timeline, let's say. So if you look at it as a timeline, first of all, you will need the vision, right? You will need to understand and see yourself in Spain. What do you want, okay, of your life once you move to Spain? Then you will start to go more about the planning, okay, more about the timeline, about the dates. That's the schedule stage. Then, according to your vision, the destination. Where are you going to go? What is the best location in Spain? Then money matters, the budget, creating a financial plan. Immigration matters. Okay, what is your status going to be once you are in Spain, and how that status is going to be evolving once you are in Spain? Housing, finding a house. Where are you going to live? Are you going to rent? Are you going to buy? Are you going to buy with mortgage? Are you going to buy with a full payment? And then the tips for a nice and smooth arrival in Spain, complying with immigration requirements. And once you are in Spain, what to expect and tips so that you have a smooth integration into your new life. community matters, and the emotional journey that is linked to this big project. Now, let's start with the first stage, which is vision. Here I have included an image of Madrid, okay, which is a bustling city, and Alicante, yes, a coastal town, much smaller. You need to see where you plan to move to Spain and try to imagine what is going to be your life once you are in Spain, because in the end, that vision that you have is going to be guiding all your decisions. Okay, every single thing that you do has to be aligned to the vision that you have of your new life in Spain. Okay, and for that, it's not going to be only let's say an idealistic vision of it, but you have to think about how it's going to be your day-to-day life. What are you going to do in the morning? What are you going to do in the afternoon? What kind of people will it be with you? Where you plan, you envision yourself? It's going to be a rural area, it's going to be the coast, it's going to be a city. So this is very, very important. Most of us, I include myself, I tend to forget about this, and I tend to go directly to execution, okay, of my plans. Yes, I don't spend nearly enough time into this part, but I think it is extremely, extremely important, because otherwise you will be executing into a direction that is not bringing you to where you want to go, right? So as I said, think the mundane things, okay, the day-to-day life. What are you going to do in Spain? You need to consider if you're going to be working, if you're going to be retiring, if you're going to be mixing those two things, what kind of social life you're going to have, what type of leisure you're going to have, and you're going to have to think about your ideal week and day and identify the key elements that compose that vision. So for that, of course, you will need to link to the location, to the preferred setting, okay? It's going to be a city, it's going to be a coastal town, rural area, but also, depending when in life you're moving to Spain and the circumstances that you're moving, what amenities should be together with this vision? Yes, you have to consider healthcare, schools, for example, if you're moving with family, shopping, transportation is very important. You have to think that maybe you want to move, you want to visit your family back home, maybe you need to go back. How close to transportation means you need or you want to be. And as I said, once you define all this, all the decisions have to take into account what you have decided, or you're going to be moving flexibly your vision, yes, to adapt to a more realistic project, right? So for this, there is a workshop that you can do, and I highly recommend you doing it. It's not the same just imagining and thinking and that's it, but sitting down and writing it. It is very, very important. And for that, you will try to narrow down all this information into small lists, okay, until you summarize or condense into small lists, or even one single element. So for that, you will maybe print out this worksheet that I prepared for you, where you can sit down and do that exercise, okay? Before moving to that, it is important to understand that if you're moving with your partner, if you're moving with your family, or if you're moving alone, it is better also to talk about this, of course. I mean, it is essential to talk with your partner about your idea of moving to Spain and understanding what's your partner's idea of moving to Spain, and your family, maybe. If you're moving alone, maybe being part of a community, joining Facebook groups, and ask for feedback, okay, from other people who are not, let's say, so emotional about this. How do they see your idea? Yes, what do they think? Receive their feedback, okay, be open to that. Yes, and it is very important, of course, that if you move together with your partner, that you both align, because otherwise you could have blocks on the road, okay? As I said, this is a worksheet that, when I send you the recording, you can take a screenshot of that, or if you send me an email, I will send you this worksheet. But it's basically going step 1, step 2, and writing down just simple sentences, how you envision things, and This could be very surprising to understand that maybe your partner has a different vision than yours, and how can you connect those visions so that you are both happy, right? When you move to Spain and when you are planning to move. And sometimes when you're executing the plan, you forget why you are doing it. You forget it. You need to go back to the reasons why you chose that, right? So you will need also information. Between the vision and the plan, you will need to investigate. In order to investigate, I'm sure you're going to find some interesting tools here that you can use online. Okay, we live in the information era, and there's so much that you can do before you do a scouting trip to Spain, which I highly recommend. First of all, Google. Yes, you will use Google to search for things, pretty obvious. But then there are other smaller tools that are not so famous. WeatherSpark, for example. If you Google WeatherSpark, you can use it to compare the weather in the different cities. Also comparing to your city, for example, in origin, in the UK, in the US, in Canada. You can compare Valencia, Malaga, Bilbao, Madrid, compare all the different weather metrics, okay, so that you understand before moving, what is it true that in Spain it's always shining, the sun? Well, we just came from a month of rain in Malaga, okay? Google Maps, okay, and Google Earth is very important, I think. I love geography. I love these tools. And I think it makes you understand when you see a satellite photography of the area where you want, potentially you are considering to move to or to travel to. It's very interesting to look at it, understand distances, because they, in USA, for example, and Spain are very, very different. The dimensions are completely different. It's almost like Alice in Wonderland. Okay, some things here are so narrow, but so close. And, there's so many walkable areas in comparison to, for example, in the way that cities in the US are structured. So yeah, Idealista, the top real estate platform in Spain. Numbeo is a community-driven or fed platform that will tell you about the cost of living in the different cities. And the bigger the city, the more information, the more data it is, and the more accurate it is. So it's very, very interesting. And joining Facebook groups or Reddit, okay, communities, it's very, very interesting and very important because there's fresh information and a lot of people who want to help. A lot of people who went through this and just really want to help others not to make the same mistakes or recommendations, of course, right? And also YouTube. There's so much information on YouTube right now, so much. And of course, you can watch Spainguru's YouTube channel with more than 800 videos. Very important, professional help. Once your vision is taking shape, maybe you want to consult with experts, immigration experts, tax experts, to make sure that the vision you have also starts to line up with the possibilities you have. And for that, you can find on spainguru.es so much free information and those experts if you want to move forward in your project. Now, the second stage will be the schedule, the timeline, right? Once you have the idea about moving to Spain, more or less where, you will need to start writing down when this is all going to happen. And writing this down will help you to stay organized and stress-free. It's very important, okay? Well, you will always have some stress, but if you have all the dates, can be mistaken. The first time you won't get it, okay? But the second, the third, you start polishing it. You will have to set a roadmap, okay? From when you decide to move to Spain until you arrive, okay? And for this, you will have to think when will be the date in which you move to Spain. Literally the date in which you get off the airplane and set foot in Spanish territory. And the way you create the project, the timeline, is by working backwards from the date in which you'd like to move to Spain, okay? And how do you create that timeline? You will have to list the major milestones. Could be visa application, well, for sure. Housing, both in your origin country. Maybe you're planning to sell your house. When you move to Spain, you will have to get housing as well. Job transition, okay? What happens if, for example, you're planning to do a non-lucrative visa? You need to maybe quit your job, prepare for that, right? So how long is it going to take to do all those different things? What are the sub-steps that you need to include into that timeline, okay? And the time frames in between for those critical milestones. right? You will have also to think about the seasonality, holidays. You will have to think about the tax implications. For example, potentially you will want to avoid CGT liabilities, capital gains tax. If you're planning to sell your home in the US and in the UK, you don't want to move to Spain and become a tax resident in Spain during the same tax year where you moved, where you sold your property. Okay, and once you have set this timeline, you will have you will want to have reminders and always stay on track. You will need to be a project manager. Okay, you will have to get proper specific deadlines for each of those tasks and subtasks, and so you're sure you're staying on track. Okay, and again, I have created this printable workshop or information where you can use to help you to create that project. Okay, listing maybe the most important milestones you have, but also writing down the date in which you move to Spain, in which you intend to move to Spain. Writing it down on a paper is going to be very, very important for you, because it's hard to delete it from your mind once you have written it on a paper, right? um, and then how you move backwards to create that timeline. And also, of course, there is an investigation that you still need to do, which is anticipating challenges. For that, you need to read about people's experiences, okay? Get knowledgeable about the different things that you need to do, because people have faced challenges in each one of them. Okay, there is the bureaucracy, there is selling the property, etc. There is the immigration issues, etc., etc. What are those challenges that maybe you want to write down just to have in mind and not forget, right? Read about others' experiences. Where do you find those experiences? Maybe friends who moved to Spain, or if you join communities of people who did, for example, Spainguru's groups, you find tons of people telling their stories, their timelines, okay, how they did their move to Spain. For example, in this case, this is a success story from London to Alicante. This one is from New York City to Andalusia, younger couple, taking a sabbatical period. And people share a lot of that information that, you can find maybe some inspiration or some detail that coincides with your situation and will make you think, oh, I have to pay special attention to this, right? Tools you can use, again, tools you can use to help you. Maybe you're not the most organized person ever, to follow this timeline and respect the deadlines. For example, I love Trello for simple projects, just very visual. It is a Kanban style, which is cards. Basically, you create columns, and depending on the status of that specific part of the project, once it's ready, you move the card to the done column, no? From the to-do list to the done column. It's so simple, it's free, and you can create as many cards as you want. You create the card, right? It could be, apostilling this document. It could be searching for housing in Valencia. It could be anything, right? You create all those cards, and then, you can do a brainstorming, create as many cards as possible. You can also, put them in different categories. For example, housing, immigration, taxes, not only a timeline, right? So you can put it the way you want, and it can really, really help you move on with this project. Google Sheets, same as Trello, but it's not going to be so visual, but it's nice, especially for creating, you can create projects on Google Sheets, of course, but it's also interesting because you can create your budgets, which is extremely important. Again, joining Facebook group for gathering personal opinions. Google Calendar is very, very nice because it's absolutely free and can send you reminders for everything. Third stage, destination. Where am I going to go in Spain, right? And depending where you go, it's going to shape your lifestyle, routine, and social life. It is absolutely different experience moving to Galicia than moving to Malaga, okay? Or moving to the mountains, obviously, right? Or moving to Almeria, which is quite desertic. And again, think about the priorities, okay? What is top on your list of preferences that is aligning to your vision, that is aligning to your partner's vision? Yes, what is the priority? Because nowhere in Spain has it all, unfortunately, probably in the world. It's no. So you will have to, say no to some things and yes to important things, okay? And always remember why you took that decision. Always go back, okay, and understand why you took that decision. Yes, weather is very important. Maybe top driver for many people about moving to Spain. But Spain is extremely varied. You have very different weathers, and you can see there on the blue color oceanic weather. It rains a lot. Yes, it could be like the British Isles, most of the year. Um, on the coast of the Mediterranean, it's different climates, very nice climate in general, but also there are variations inside the peninsula. So it's important to understand those. And for that, as I said, you can use Weather Spark. I love data. I just love charts and data and historical data that doesn't lie in the end. Of course, these are numbers, but they can really give you important information about things happening. Because, for example, in Valencia, we recently have the Dana, as you know, the floodings and everything. But you need, maybe that stays in your mind, but you're not looking at historical data. Of course, you have to take that into account. It's important, but it's important to look at the data in order to understand what to expect in the different locations. And Weather Spark gives you the possibility to compare. Okay, for example, there I'm comparing Valencia, New York City, Los Angeles, okay, London. Yes, and it's so interesting that you do those comparisons, and it's absolutely free. Now, deciding where to settle in Spain, it's very important to understand what culturally what you seeking for. Okay, what type of community you plan to be part of. Okay, are you planning to be in a bigger size city, quiet villages, for a more low pace type of life? And again, we mentioned before amenities and services. This is more going in depth, really. Like if you are narrowing down the list of cities, even areas in the different cities, what type of access do you have to services and amenities? We're talking about healthcare, transportation, schools, etc. Okay, so maybe you were thinking about coastal cities in the middle of nowhere, okay, because you want to chill from your job and everything, but the fact is, it is a priority to you to have strong healthcare services around you. So maybe you will have to cross some options that come up to you and maybe choose bigger places that are more connected. Yes. For doing this, the tools obviously forums, groups, official sites, and real estate portals like Idealista. Idealista has a lot of data for free and maps, and it can be very, very visual. Okay. And now we're adding the element of news, okay? Things that are happening. Now that you maybe want to narrow, that you have a smaller list, you want to understand what the community is saying. People who are living there, people who are planning to move to those areas, yes? Try to engage in that conversation. Go to YouTube, okay? Watch some YouTube channels that talk about news, okay? Follow Spainguru, okay? Because I talk about things that are happening too, okay? So now that you are more into that, you have the information narrowed down, maybe to understand what is happening actually in those places. And very, very important, exploratory visits. Okay, so now that you have a smaller list, the best you can do is to visit those places, stay there some time, do your life, live the life of that city, okay, so that you experience it firsthand. Okay, talking to people, trying to meet people. If you know that you're going to be, maybe you want to prepare some meetings with expats living there or locals if you can, and potentially even meeting experts who can help you move to that area. Okay, so this is, I think, very, very important. Something that you have to have in mind is that when you are in Spain physically, it doesn't matter if you're as a tourist, it counts for tax residency. As you probably heard, tax residency, the most important condition is if you spend more than 183 days in Spain in a tax year from January 1st to December 31st, you will be tax resident in Spain and you will be liable for paying tax on your global income and potentially on the net value of your assets. So if you spend time as a tourist at the beginning of the year and then you move later in the year and you add up all those days in Spain, be careful because it could have tax implications. Then budget. Money matters. Extremely important. You will have to create a budget, of course. Unless you are very well off, you have to be careful because Spain is not as cheap as it used to be, especially after COVID. We had a very big, very high inflation. I think like everywhere else. But also, a lot of people decided that they didn't want to live where they were living and started moving to Spain, especially to the coastal cities. So the average inflation index in Spain might not represent what really happened in the most demanded areas in Spain. So for that, you need to plan in advance and accordingly. And for this, I think Numbeo, it is a nice free tool that you can use, as I mentioned before, in order to understand the cost today of the different things, rentals. That, well, for rentals, use rental platforms too, but for different things, it is very, very interesting information and updated information about each of the cities, so you can use to create a very realistic budget. Okay, and you will have to have into account rent, groceries, transportation, leisure activities, potentially taxes. Okay, and for that, it's important to meet with a tax professional so that you understand what are the tax implications of your move to Spain, so that you have all that into your budget. And of course, location matters. It's not going to be the same living in Barcelona, the same life, than living it in Valencia or living it in Murcia, for example, or Costa Blanca, which are much more affordable, right? And also understanding what type of life you like to have in Spain. It's not the same a frugal life that you're not gonna travel much. Okay, you don't have to go back to your country for Christmas, for example. Maybe you plan to do so. Maybe you want to go back, for example, to the States twice a year. You need to have that, but in your budget, all the money that you need that is going to pay for your expenses need to be on that budget. Okay, and if you're planning to pay for mortgages or loans, this have a very significant influence in that budget. Okay, and for that, the best you can do is be very, very technical and square. Use Excel, Google Sheets. Okay, and make sure that everything is added there, and make sure that you are managing risks correctly. Okay, I have a video that I uploaded a couple of months ago or 3 months ago. It's 3 scenarios depending on the type of lifestyle that you have, and that can help you build a budget. Okay, you can go to youtube.com Spainguru, you can read that QR code and it'll bring you to this video, and it can help you to build a simple budget. But it's not, I don't think it's going to be enough, at least for what I consider it will make me happy before moving to Spain. I think I will need to have a much more, let's say, sophisticated or in detail or granular budget, actually. So this is, anything you do for knowing your budget will be time well spent. Okay, now let's talk also about taxes. I have a tax webinar every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks, 5 stars reviews on Trustpilot. I talk an hour about taxes in Spain. I highly recommend you joining it if you haven't joined yet. I also send you a recording. You can find recordings of previous ones on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. So it's very hard to condense this into one single slide, but basically the most important concept is tax residency. After 183 days in Spain, regardless of status, you will be considered tax resident in Spain. Or if you have your main source of income in Spain, even if you spend less time, you could be considered tax resident too. Or if you have a spouse or children resident in Spain also. Most important things to consider is income tax, which have progressive tax brackets between 19% to 47%. That is due on June 30. For example, for 2024, June 30, 2025, you will pay income tax for the previous tax year. You will have wealth tax, which is also a progressive tax on the net value of your assets that applies usually, depending on the region, is a regional tax. It kicks in from 500,000 euros in Catalonia, for example, but in Madrid, 3 million euros. And in Andalusia, there is a full rebate, so also kicks in on 3 million euros because actually, once the government saw that a few regions didn't charge for the wealth tax, the national government of Spain created the solidarity tax, which is a tax that works, let's say, the same way as the wealth tax, but it's not regional, it's national, but it is for higher threshold of 3 million euros. There are allowances, okay, and there are things that you can deduct, like the value of a property if you own a property in Spain, up to 300,000, etc. But yes, Spain may tax the value of your assets, okay, it may. Now, there is also the Modelo 720, which is a declaration, an information that you give to the tax authorities about your assets value outside of Spain. And that, actually in a week, there is a deadline for this. There's the capital gains tax that we mentioned. If you sold something, you sold a property or other rights, and you're a tax resident in Spain, you may pay capital gains tax. And then there are other taxes like EV, which is property tax, transfer tax if you buy a property, second-hand property, etc., etc. Okay. There is also special tax regimes, especially for employees that move to Spain that haven't been living in Spain for the previous 5 years. You could enjoy a 24% flat rate for 5 years and the year in which you apply. But remember that Spanish tax laws are extremely complex. So I highly recommend you to consult with a tax advisor, which I am not. This is not tax advice, absolutely not. But you can join my webinar and we're going to go much more in depth about taxes in Spain and your tax obligations so that the objective is that you are more informed and you understand more so that when you engage with a tax professional, you make better questions, okay, to them, or you explain your situation much better to them so they can go more specifically about your situation and give you better answers. Right now, the fifth point, immigration. You will also have to find the status in which you can move to Spain. Okay, so there are different visa options. We talk about visa and residency. So visa is the paper that goes into your passport that allows you a window of entry into Spain, okay, for a certain amount of time, normally 90 days. And then once you are in Spain, you will get your residency, right? So the different types of visa and / residencies are the non-lucrative visa. This is for people who have the savings or the passive income and who don't need to work in Spain, okay? Typically called the retirement visa, but it doesn't have to be for retiring, could be sabbatical year. Digital nomad visa or teleworkers visa. This is for remote workers, people who work for foreign companies, okay, in a remote basis. This is a pretty new visa. Work visa, for example, if you receive a Spanish job offer or you plan to open a business in Spain, this is something that you can also consider. Student visa, which doesn't allow your residency. This is a permiso de estancia. And this is important because if you plan to become Spanish, if you plan to obtain the Spanish passport, you need to have a residency permit, not a estancia permit, such is the case of student visa. So be careful with that. Golden visa, as you probably know, ends in April 3rd, 2025. It's for investments. And things you need to consider is that each visa has its own requirements, specific financial requirements, and there are different processing times. Maybe they're from different immigration laws in Spain, so they have different rules that structure these procedures. Okay, and it's important, of course, to move to Spain with a valid permit, logically, right? So once that you know more about these types of visas and your personal situation, and also aligning always with your vision, you will maybe go more in depth in the investigation of these types of visas. As we said, non-lucrative visa, digital nomad visa, work visa, student visa. That doesn't work for citizenship, but the non-lucrative visa, digital nomad visa, or residencies, they do count for residency requirements for obtaining the Spanish passport. Also, engaging with an immigration professional will tell you the different pathways and strategies for a long-term project of being in Spain. Okay, so this is very, very important because you have minimum stays in Spain requirements in order to comply for the long-term residency, for the Spanish passport, and those things you always need to have them into account, and everything has to line up perfectly. Now, once you have decided on the type of visa, you will have to review the official requirements. Okay, so for example, if you plan to apply for the non-lucrative visa, you have to understand that you cannot apply from Spain. Yes, but the digital nomad visa, for example, allows you to apply from Spain or also from your consulate, but it has different implications. Digital nomad visa from Spain can grant you up to 3 years of residency, while if you do it from a passport, from a consulate, it's only 1 year you can be granted. All those things, all that information, you need to understand it, okay, and plan accordingly, right? And once you have decided for the visa, you will gather the documents, passport, proof of funds, insurance, compliant health insurance, background checks, certificates. For example, if you're moving with your spouse or with kids, you will need new birth certificates. If you married in, for example, Cyprus or Trinidad and Tobago, you will need to obtain new certificates from those countries and apostilles from those authorities. So it will take time. It will be a full project inside the whole project of moving to Spain, right? And you will have to ensure that everything is properly legalized, apostles and some translations, etc., etc. Okay, and the official documents have a validity period. So when you submit those documents, they need to be valid at the time of submission. Of course, you have to be very organized, okay? And it is a tip, a recommendation, that you scan every single thing and you keep copies of every single thing and bring those copies to Spain, okay? Because once you are here in Spain, they love papers. Spanish authorities love papers, and they will require you for papers. Even if it's not officially required, it will help you so much to have all those papers to show to the authorities, okay? And of course, you will have to plan for the different processing times. For example, the digital nomad visa in Spain, in 20 working days, you have an answer. The golden visa is also very fast, although it's finishing now. The non-lucrative visa is not that fast. It has an official processing time of 90 days. And of course, you need to make sure that everything aligns with your plans. As I said, I have a pretty in-depth Spanish non-lucrative visa webinar, okay, with very good reviews. It's helping a lot of people attending to this webinar. I think it is, humbly speaking, it is a very good webinar. If you're planning to apply with this type of visa, I highly recommend you joining, because it will give you a lot of information, and it's absolutely free to do so. Then 6, housing. You need to find a place to stay, a pad, right? So for that, of course, there are pros and cons about renting or buying. I highly recommend you first renting, because it will offer you the flexibility without committing to a specific area or property, okay? And finding a place to buy takes time, a good one, okay? So unfortunately, it is, the information out there, it's not very transparent in Spain for the real estate processes. So it is, I think, a very safe moment to rent before committing about doing an investment or buying a property. Yes. But of course, prices are rising, and some people prefer just to buy. And I of course respect that, but consider that renting, it is a much safer option, a much more flexible option, logically. Okay. And also, we provide you with much more information in order for you to understand if what you are doing is still aligning with your original vision, or you need to rethink some things. Okay. Now, if you're planning to navigate the Spanish housing market, I'm here concentrating about rentals. As you can see, location has a strong impact on your lifestyle, has a strong impact on the prices and the availability of inventory on each of the cities. Okay, there you can see the map. This is the price per square meter. And you can see that Madrid, Malaga, Barcelona, the Balearic Islands, and now Valencia taking off. And if you see, for example, the map, if you go more granular, this is the map of Valencia, the different areas inside Valencia. And if you could scroll more in, you will see the different neighborhoods inside the areas of the city. All those have strong implications where you move. Prices are rising. There's a huge demand and very little inventory. There's not much construction here. And also there is a problem with the, let's say, legal security for landlords here. It is a very real problem. Unfortunately, the laws here in Spain are very much pro tenants, so that makes it very difficult for people to find available housing, because landlords are very, very concerned, because it is very easy to just like stop paying once you move to a property. So yeah, this is the real situation. There you can see the evolution of prices per square meter, and you can see Barcelona and Madrid are going very high, but so is the case of Valencia. You can see that also the case of Seville is not that bad. All the inner cities except Madrid have flatter progressions in their prices because everyone wants to move to the coast, right? So the way you find the right property, you will use a local real estate agent, okay, and help getting information through property portals like Idealista. Fotocasa is also an important one. Join local forums. There's a lot of Facebook groups out there, okay? A lot of scams going on though, so be careful. And something that you need to understand is that the good properties are rented in 24 hours, like that, the good ones, okay? Or even sold in just 1 week or even less, okay? So you need to be prepared just like the I don't know how you call this, but like an arrow man, a bowman. Yes, you have to have um, your arrow tense, and then the decision is fast. Okay, so you have to make sure that you know what you're going to be doing, because when the moment comes, you will need to move extremely fast but safe in order to avoid scams. Okay, and this is also, again, consider flexible options before committing for longer periods of time. Maybe rent on vacational basis like Airbnb, Booking, or use platforms like Spotahome for maybe a few months before committing to longer term rentals. Okay, it's also recommendable that you use lawyers or someone who understands, or a local person that can help you maybe review your contracts to understand that the property is owned by the person who is saying that is renting you, that the contract is right, and understanding the regulations. Also, something very important is that you probably will need, very, very highly probably, you will need a certificado de empadronamiento, which is the certificate that proves your address where you're living. You will have to register in the city hall office. And for that, you will need to show a rental contract or a property deed, or, yes, basically, you will have to register yourself, your address, because you will need that certificate for doing many things, especially obtaining the residency card, which is going to the police station, okay, or a foreign office, putting your fingerprints, taking and bringing your photo, and you will get your residency card. And for that, 90% of police stations will ask you for the certificado de empadronamiento. And of course, if you plan to buy property, you have to understand your tax implications, okay, when you buy the properties, potential implication for the wealth tax, and so much, right? Um, some housing, some tips for house hunting, okay? Try to avoid summertime in coastal cities, but Madrid, for example, is the other way around. Summer is low season. It is a good season to search for property in Spain. In Madrid, it is extremely hot weather also. Maybe that's one of the reasons. So all the Madrileños flee to the coast or somewhere in else in Spain. Be careful of scams, hidden fees, and misleading listings. Be careful with that. And as I said, join the Facebook groups. When the moment comes and you have all the information, you are right, you're sure about doing it, you will have to act quickly if you want to find the good properties. Okay. And sorry, something I didn't mention here. The way that realtors work here in Spain is very different from other countries. For example, in the US, is very different. Here, realtors don't have to have a license. It is an unregulated sector. Anyone, for example, me, this afternoon, I could become a realtor right now and start offering properties for rent and sale. Okay, I don't have to have any license. Okay, but and so who pays the fees of the realtors? Normally, it is the seller of the house and the landlord, okay, of the property rental. So they're not gonna be working on your interests if you are a tenant or a buyer. So be careful with that. Be careful with that, right? So the way to avoid those or reduce the risk is becoming knowledgeable and potentially engaging with a professional lawyer who understands the implications of the rental or the property that you plan to buy. You will need, of course, documentations for rentals, NIE, which is the número de identificación de extranjero. It is just a number. If you're obtaining a visa for Spain, normally the consulate will assign you a NIE number at the same time that it issues the visa. For example, if you apply for the non-lucrative visa, once you get it granted, on the visa itself comes your NIE number, okay? And many people will require that number for renting a property, for example. You can still only use your passport if, for example, you're going to rent for shorter term, less than 3 months, or mid-term, maybe 6 months. Many landlords accept just the passport. And this is one of the key things. In Spain, there is no credit score. Doesn't happen like that. People are going to be focusing on the proof of income. So if you have an employment contract, bank statements, tax returns, landlords will want to see this, and also agencies will want to see this. And potentially, maybe they will ask you for a bank guarantee or guarantor. So you will have to have a bank account potentially in Spain where you can block some amount of money just to reduce the risks for landlords. Okay. There are different types of contracts that you will need to understand: short-term, mid-term, seasonal, long-term, residential. Now the long-term contracts are almost disappearing because what I said, that The laws here in Spain are very much pro-tenant, so no landlord wants to sign long-term rental contracts. Also, they don't, with the high inflation that we have, there's rules and tops for how much they can increase the rent, so they're always below inflation. So yes, it is going to be hard to find long-term rentals, not impossible, of course, but it's going to be harder than maybe 4 years ago. Usually we have to set deposits, usually 1 month or even 2 months if it's furnished, and you will have to pay on your monthly rent, the responsibilities for maintenance, and potentially if you leave before a certain date, you will have to pay some cancellation clauses, etc. And this is from the Spainguru's community. Some people who move to Spain under non-lucrative visa that don't have, for example, passive income, they cannot show income, they have savings. Maybe they have savings 2 million euros in their bank. This is the ironic thing. Okay, I'm not saying that they have 2 million in the bank, but they have enough so that they comply with the funding requirements of the visa, okay, and will be able to pay, okay, the rent. But the thing is that now in Spain, a lot of landlords are wary about this, and they don't want to rent to people who don't have steady income. Okay, so it's going to be harder. These are people who say, for example, has anyone rented an apartment on NLB without being able to show any salary income? We were approved for the visa based on savings accounts, but no apartments seem open to renting to us based on savings accounts. Any tips to find rentals, etc.? So again, join the community because a lot of people are doing the same thing as you, and you may find some interesting experience and tips to overcome this type of problems. Arrival. When you arrive to Spain, there are different steps or things, and there's so many little things that you have to comply with. Okay, and I had like 5 slides that I concentrated into this one, so it's very, very hard to condense all that information, but very important. You will have to get a passport stamp once you enter Spain if you're coming outside of Schengen area. Schengen area is a group of 28 countries that are internally borderless. Okay, so for example, if you fly from New York to Madrid, you're flying from outside Schengen. But if you fly from New York to Paris, you enter Schengen in Paris, you get a passport stamp in Paris, and then you fly from Paris to Madrid, you will not get a passport stamp. You need to get a Spanish passport stamp or a declaración de entrada if you enter from Schengen, which is a 1-page document from the police at the airport or in the border, okay, saying that you have entered Spain in that specific date. And this is very important because when you go to get your residency card, they will want to have proof of your day when you enter Spain. Recommended to do it within the visa validity, okay, period. Depending on the visa, there are different implications, but generally this is a concept that you need to understand. You need to have correct and official proof of your entering Spain, not only the Schengen area, Spain, right? You will register for the padrón or empadronamiento, as we said. This is highly recommended. Open a non-resident bank account. Banks have 2 types of accounts: resident accounts, the most common ones, and non-resident bank account. Until you have your TA card, you are non-resident. You go to a bank, Santander, Sabadell, La Caixa, BBVA, brick and mortar bank. They open you a non-resident bank account, somewhere where you can deposit some money and use to pay your bills, your utilities, your rental, your gym, etc. Right? It's recommended to have a Spanish SIM card as well, because you will receive SMS from the authorities for picking up paperwork, etc. And you will have to apply for your residency card, as I said. Talking about banks, as I said, before you are considered a resident in Spain, you will be able to open non-resident accounts. And the way that usually expats or immigrants, people use to change their dollars or pounds into euros, you use a platform, okay, a currency converted. Here, I personally use Wise to transform dollars and pounds because I have customers also in countries with those currencies. So the way that people use is you transform the value of those currencies into euros in Wise, and then you send those euros to a brick and mortar bank or an online bank like N26, for example, or Revolut, okay, that work very well. And actually, if you go to spainguru.es/financial services, you can find referral codes for any of these, and it is absolutely free to open those accounts. I'm sure that you will find it extremely useful to use it. Also, because I like this Wise, for example, because it's very easy to see, very easy to understand. It has a nice UX. Now, also, you will want to still continue to receive phone calls or SMS from your countries. So people from the US report that one of the top options is getting Google Voice for one-time fee of $20 to receive calls and 2FA texts, and yes, and other solutions. But basically, you want to have the possibility to connect to your origin country from the phone, and also with Spain. It is also important once you arrive to have that option. There are different companies. Movistar, Vodafone are top picks, but you also have cheaper ones that work well, like Lobster or Joigo. Okay, those are also options. Now let's talk about the community. We're arriving almost to the final parts, because this is an extremely important part of your project of moving to Spain. Generally, what is the best option to integrate with your new community? Okay, the community doesn't have to be Spanish people. It could be expats. It could be people in your same situation. It could be a mix of both. Maybe that's the best option, right? Because you will have things in common to each one of them. But it was very, very important is to build connections. Once you move to Spain, not isolate yourself. Open yourself. Increase your social life. Okay, join expat groups, clubs, go to language exchanges. Okay, try to meet people, open your network. Okay, and try to immerse yourself if you can. Okay, you can try different types of activities: dance classes, sports, art workshops, etc. Okay, and something important you can do is volunteering. Okay, a lot of people in the non-lucrative visa groups say that you can't volunteer, you cannot volunteer. This is not true. You can volunteer as long as you don't get paid. You can volunteer. You can join NGOs. You can join any kind of groups, neighbors associations, and help people. And also, it's a way to build connections. Okay, and I highly recommend it that you do so. Okay, and very, very important in my opinion, as you saw, I speak 5 languages. I don't speak any of them very well, like English. But for me, it's not really like people say, like, how come you've been here for 10 years, you don't speak Spanish, or you don't speak Spanish well? Honestly speaking, I love that about Spain, that they don't push people to learn the language, or they don't, put their flag into your mouth. um, I just like that about Spain. They're very relaxed, very chilled. But really, it's about you learning Spanish. It will make your life better. If you learn Spanish, at least just to get by, it's going to make your life so much better and make you feel, as a consequence, much better being in Spain. That I highly, highly recommend it. And it is a quite simple language with so much in common. I think 40% of the words are very, very similar, if not the main word, but a word that resonates to you in a more formal context. It is quite easy, at least to get by, just to understand. So highly recommended. You can find recommended online courses on Spainguru.es with a discount that I highly recommend, at least to have a base about this language. Okay, and it will help you to stay connected with people and to engage more with the different communities. And last but not least, the emotional journey. This is something commonly overlooked. Okay, a lot of people think that this is going to be sun and roses, but no, it's not going to happen like that. I'm afraid to tell you, unless you know Spain very well. You've been here many, many times, and it was just a matter of time that you moved to Spain. You're going to go through different phases. Okay, you're going to have the honeymoon phase, okay, in which you're excited and it's an adventure. But then you're going to have the reality check. You're going to have things that are not that beautiful, a bit ugly, in fact, like the bureaucracy, cultural barriers, language barriers. And you're going to have doubts about the decision that you took. So you're going to go through that, okay? And then is the phase 3, which is acceptance, okay? In which hopefully you will start feeling at home and embracing the new lifestyle you have. So for this, it's very important to be patient, allowing time to yourself to adjust. Okay, enough time. Yes, months, in fact, take time to adjust to the different setup in which you are living now today, and also allowing time for you to join the community and build your network, so that it's also helping you to adapt. And again, join as many groups as possible. Try to meet as many people as possible in order to enhance your network. Okay. When you are in doubt, always remember the reasons why you decided to move to Spain, okay, and support yourself, you and your spouse and your family for this. Try to engage with life around you, local tradition, customs, and as I said, try to learn the language and build your network, okay? I have here a couple of examples of videos. Ones I recently released it like last week. Why expats? What expats should know about living in Spain. I think it is a pretty interesting video because it mentions a lot of things that other videos don't mention, and also lonely in Spain. How long until I feel at home? Okay. Look, I've been living in Spain for 21 years, and I love the country. It's amazing. Okay. I'm not trying to bring you down with this. Okay. I just want you to be aware that you are human and you are a person with feelings, and you're gonna be in this position. So for that, you just need to understand what is happening, because it's absolutely natural that that will happen to you. And for that, follow the tips, open yourself, and build your support network, because it's going to be an amazing time that you have in Spain, but not without its small little problems. So try to be flexible. Everything is slower here. Bureaucracy to start. So you have to be very, very patient. Okay. Learn the language. Try to have an open mind. Try to think that you are in a new place. Okay. You're not still in the other place. Don't compare so much with what you had at home, or the previous place where you lived. Okay. And try to just enjoy the reality as it is. Build a support network. Prepare yourself and investigate. And all this, if you do all this, you will for sure enjoy moving to Spain. Now, let's recap. These are the 9 steps, okay, or areas that could be chronological, but normally would overlap. You will need to go through them at the same time, in fact, but more or less could be summarized in these 9 areas: vision, schedules, destination, budget, immigration, housing, arrival, community, and emotional journey. All those things, if you master them, I'm sure you'll have a nice move to Spain. And again, you can use Spainguru for finding experts. I highly recommend engaging with immigration and tax experts. The bare minimum, it is, in my opinion, money well spent. Talk to experts, or use Spainguru for the free stuff, okay, which is the community. 140,000 members, together with the community, people who can tell you about their experiences, etc., and investigate, and can help you investigate. Watch the YouTube videos, join the newsletter, so that you have your news and you start to almost be in Spain, at least through your computer, because it's gonna be really helpful for you to do that in advance. Now we can move to the Q&A session. Okay, so I will thank everyone for asking the different sessions. This is the first webinar of this kind, so please understand that I will polish the content of this presentation and everything that I speak about, and you are more than welcome to join again, because I will do it again, and it is absolutely free. The only thing I ask you in advance is 5 seconds of your time. If you can leave a Trustpilot review there on the top, you have a green bar with a red button that will redirect you to the reviews. All right, let's go to the questions. Let's see if we have a few. Vision worksheet, great suggestion. Thank you, Katarina, you're welcome. Be sure to allow for difficulties and setbacks when making your schedule. Absolutely, I talked a lot about it. And also some people tell me I'm they tell me you're negative, you're pessimistic. It could be. I think that I'm optimistic, extremely optimistic, but I like to plan. Okay, I like to plan ahead, and I prefer not to improvise. So yeah, it's true that that could make me a little bit pessimistic in a way, right? All right, here's some questions. Dean, thank you for joining today and asking a question. Does the 183 days per year apply only to Spain or all EU Schengen zone? It's only for Spain. And this is a tax rule, okay, or a tax condition to become a tax resident in Spain that will make you liable for paying tax on your global income and potentially in the net value of your assets per December 31st. Okay. So yeah, only Spain. And in general, most of the rules, we're only talking about Spain. Only talking about Spain. So the minimum stay requirements are about Spain. For example, if you plan to obtain a long-term residence in Spain, after 5 years of legal residence in Spain, you will have to not be outside of Spain more than 10 months in the previous 5 consecutive years. You can share those 10 months the way you want, or those days, but you have to be not outside of Spain more than 10 months total if you want to obtain the long-term residence. Or if you want to apply for Spanish citizenship, no more than 3 months outside of Spain in the previous years, each year, just to give you examples. Okay, and it's always Spain. And they ask me, like, if I travel in Schengen zone, I'm not recommending that, but there's no border control when you go inside Schengen. There could be exceptional controls, and they could put you a stamp, okay, of the if the police stops you because of whatever. Okay, so really, there is a risk, but it's not highly enforceable, let's say. All right, I'm going maybe too much into the details. Catarina, no lucrative means zero work while in Spain. So Catarina, this is a very, very blurry situation, okay? And I have a lot of content about this, about can you work in Spain under the no-lucrative visa. So I will tell you, and I will repeat, Ainhoa Manero's words. She's a top immigration expert from Sterna Abogados, top immigration firm in Madrid, that I highly recommend, and she did my nationality process personally, so I know that she's top. And I'm going to tell you, no-lucrative visa, the rules of the law and the regulations state that you can't work, and it's considered to not work in Spain. But if it's remote work, for non-Spanish company, it is a gray area. A lot of people are working remotely for non-Spanish companies and are non-lucrative residence holders. They pay their taxes in Spain as tax residents. They don't pay Social Security in Spain. They have their health insurance, private health insurance, which is a requirement, and they comply with the funding requirements for the non-lucrative visa. That is, that they can't use their active income for the funding requirements, so they have their savings and or passive income, but they are working remotely outside of Spain. Okay, and there is a Supreme Court ruling that supports this situation. The thing is, when you apply for the non-lucrative visa at a consulate, if they have the slightest doubt that you will be working, they will deny you ipso facto. But once you are in Spain, potentially, if you work remotely, it is a gray area, which is highly defensible from a legal standpoint, and there's absolutely no problem. I know a lot of people in this situation. Okay, so I'm not recommending you to do it. And now there is a digital nomad visa, which might be more suitable for you if you plan to work remotely for a non-Spanish company. Different story is if you want, you cannot work in Spain for a Spanish company, for sure. This is forbidden clearly by the law and by the regulation of the non-lucrative visa. But I'm talking about the regulations for remote work for non-Spanish companies, and also other situations like, for example, being a pilot. Okay, people who have to travel to USA and work maybe 10 days and then go back to Spain for a month without working. These situations are workable for the non-lucrative residents. Or now the Edinburgh consulate talked about people working in oil rigs in the Northern Sea. They can get the non-lucrative visa, and it is an official declaration. Okay, so as you can see, there's so much information about this. And I recommend you to go on YouTube, and you can find last week I published 55 frequently asked questions for the non-lucrative visa, and this is one of them. Cameron, we're considering schools for our 9-year-old, but have heard as of May 2025, expats will no longer be able to access the public school system and will need to demonstrate enrollment in a private school. Do you know if this is the case? To be honest, I don't know. That's a great question. That is a great question to ask to the community, in fact. Okay, if you join the groups, if you go to Spainguru.es and you go to the menu, you will find Facebook groups, or you will find resources and then Facebook groups. You can join all the groups in Spainguru and ask that. But I haven't heard of this. It doesn't mean that it's not true. Okay, it's just simply I didn't focus on this, and I'm not really sure about that. I'm sorry, I cannot help you right now. Katarina, about digital nomad visa, do you have a webinar about that? No, not yet. I'm planning to. I'm interested in how long track record do you need to have as being a digital nomad. You need 3 months of passive of income, 3 months. But the companies for which you are working, usually as a contractor, unless you are from the UK, needs to have been existing for at least 1 year. Okay, but you need 3 months of stable income over the threshold, which now it is at 31,151 euros per year. It is based on the 200% of the minimum wage in Spain. Do I need an active contract allowing me to work from Spain, and how long is to be valid? Yes, at least I think the contract has to be at least 1 month for at least 1 year of existence of the company. Is it considered as a valid document to confirm a digital nomad status? What is considered as a valid document? So there's a lot of things. This is a quite open question because you need to supply a lot of documentation, like your position, what you're doing, the contract. The contract has to have a specific wording. The company has to prove that it has been in existence, etc., etc. So you make a full case in order to be a digital nomad. Okay, so it would require actually to go very much in depth into this specific visa. I have a lot of content on Spainguru's YouTube channel, but also have a dedicated digital nomad visa group with 15,000 members that you can join right now, and it's absolutely for free. The community will answer you very quickly with all kinds of details on your particular situation, depending where you're applying from, if you are an employee, if you're a self professional like autonomo or freelancer. All those things have a lot of influence into how you build your case for this visa. Well, we made it till the end. I think there's no more questions, and I really appreciate that you joined today. Um, Thank you so much. You can always send me an email for says Mia. I had a question. What is your question? Maybe I answered it or not. My email is hello@spainguru.es. You can always reach me out, and I will make sure to answer you. And hopefully, if I have the answer, I will give it to you, or um, potentially at least point you out in the right direction or give you the resources that you can help you answer your question and helping your case. All right, Mia, thank you for sending me an email. Happy to do so, to answer you sometime after you send it to me. And if you haven't done so yet, please leave a review on Trustpilot. There you have the button on the top. Thank you so much for joining today. Stay in touch and hope to see you around. Take care. I will send you the recording. Don't worry. I will send you the recording to your email. All right. It will take me a few hours, though, to process it because it's a long video. Thank you so much again. Take care. Goodbye.